Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to grow an herb garden in a container, and I'm going to do it in two different ways. I'm going to do it from seedlings that I just recently purchased from the store, and then I'm also going to do it from seed so you guys can kind of see and understand the difference. So I got a handful of varieties of seedlings, all the way from rosemary to oregano, some sage. I have dill, parsley, and cilantro, largely the ones that we tend to gravitate towards most often. Now, the one thing I did forget, and I'm not even sure how I forgot this, is the basil. But anyway, we're going to grow that from seed, so I'll be fine. What I have gone ahead and done is separated the seedlings into three different categories. So I have my Mediterranean seedlings, I have my soft herbs, and then I have my dill. So I don't necessarily want to plant all of these together in one container for a couple of different reasons. My Mediterranean herbs want different conditions than something like a parsley or a cilantro, and they have a very different root system from the dill. So let me start with the dill because that's the easiest one to explain. So dill is not something that I actually would necessarily recommend buying, even though I had gone ahead and purchased it myself. This really was just for an illustration purpose. Dill has a very, very long taproot, and because of that, it does not like to really be transplanted, and it can go into some transplant shock and not do as well for you. If you really feel like you do want to go ahead and purchase dill from a seedling, try to purchase it as small as possible so it's not fully established yet, but also make sure that when you're planting it into a container about 12, maybe 24 inches deep, and it's less about how wide the container is, it's more about how deep the container is. These plants also tend to grow really, really tall, so they would shade out any of the other plants. So I would plant them in a separate container if you want to go ahead and plant them in a container in general. My recommendation though is if you have the room and the space, go ahead and use seeds and go ahead and plant them directly into the ground. That typically gives you the best success rate with dill. These also seed themselves really, really easily. So once you have one dill plant, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a bunch throughout the years to come if you take care of it. And you can always collect seeds from your dill plant one year to use for your next year. Now, your Mediterranean herbs, like your rosemaries, your sage, your oregano, these thrive in the heat. They like full sun, they like it to be nice and hot, and they really are okay if they tend to dry out every now and then between waterings. So that I'm going to be planting into a container separate from something like a parsley and a cilantro. And if I had the basil, I would go ahead and plant it with the parsley and the cilantro as well. These really are more moisture driven, so they like to be watered. They do not like to dry out. And parsley and cilantro specifically like cooler temperatures. So they really grow really well in the spring, and then again in the fall when temperatures have cooled down. They tend to bolt really, really easily in the summertime. Bolting just means that the plant grows really too fast and then it sends out flowers. And by the time it sends out flowers, the taste of that plant is a lot more bitter and you've lost the flavor that you really kind of are going for in terms of your fresh herbs. So these are really more, cilantro and parsley specifically are really more cool weather herbs. Your basil does like it to be hot, so that's one of the exceptions there. So for my Mediterranean herbs, I'm going to be planting it in this galvanized container. Now, I picked this up from Home Goods. It really wasn't a planting container. I just ended up drilling some holes in the bottom of this just for extra drainage, but I thought that these always look nice in galvanized containers. Something to keep in mind for your galvanized containers. Metal obviously attracts heat, so this will warm up the root zone a lot faster than something like a terracotta or even plastic. So it will warm it up, but it'll also cool it off a lot faster. So that temperature fluctuation, you really need to make sure that the plants are going to be able to sustain themselves when the root zone gets really, really hot in the summer during the day and then cools off rapidly at night. That's why I'm going to be putting the Mediterranean herbs in these, because those plants do not have a problem with those conditions. Galvanized containers also tend to dry out a little bit faster because as they do warm up, that also dries out the soil. So I'm going to have to be mindful in terms of watering these. I think that's a big thing with containers in general, that you just have to be really mindful of watering them a lot more often because you have a lot less control over something that you're planting directly into the ground. So I'm using Fox Farm soil today. It is a great soil that I really enjoy using. It is a very nutrient dense soil, but it's nice and crumbly, so it's not going to suffocate the plants in terms of holding on to moisture for too long. If you're just getting started, seedlings may be an easier way to go because you're skipping the hardest part, which is the germination stage. When you start from seed, everything has to be just right. The moisture, the light, the temperature. And if any one of those is off, the seed just won't germinate or the seedling will fail really quickly. But once the plant is already established like these, it has roots, it's growing, and it can handle small mistakes much more easily. The biggest advantage here is time. You can plant these today and start harvesting pretty quickly versus waiting weeks for the seeds to catch up. But there are a few trade-offs. The first and probably the biggest is the cost. Buying individual plants adds up much faster than starting from seed. The second is variety. When you're shopping at places like your big box retailers or even your local garden centers, you're usually limited to the basics, so you won't get access to all the different varieties that exist. Now for the cilantro and the parsley, I'm going to be going ahead and planting it in this terracotta planter. I actually prefer starting parsley and cilantro from seed because I cook with them quite often, so I need to succession plant. All succession planting really means is instead of planting everything all at once, you plant a small amount every couple of weeks. This is especially important for herbs like cilantro and parsley, because if you plant it once, you're only going to get one harvest and then it's done. But if you plant a little bit every 2 or 3 weeks, you'll always have something fresh coming up right behind it. It takes the pressure off of trying to keep one plant going and instead creates a steady cycle of growth. And the best part is that it's really simple. You're not doing anything different, you're just repeating the same step over and over again. So instead of planting one big batch, I'll plant a few seeds today and then I'll come back in a couple weeks and do it all over again. That's how you're going to go from having herbs only once to having them consistently. Now normally I would put basil on top, but since I somehow forgot the basil plant, I might actually try to go ahead and put the dill here because this should be okay for the taproot itself. I'm not sure whether or not it's going to compete with the roots of the cilantro and the parsley, but it's going to be a risk that we're going to go ahead and take. So let me go ahead and put that on top and then we'll go ahead and water everything in. So I'm being really careful not to disturb the roots of the dill. So now for seed starting. I am using a Fox Farm seed starting mix. It is really important that you use a seed starting mix for your seedlings because it gives their roots an opportunity to really establish a lot easier before transplanting them into a potting mix. I have also gone ahead and made sure that everything is pre-moistened. So I basically dumped everything into a bucket and poured water on it until it was the consistency where when I squeeze it, no water is really coming out, but it's clumping together. That's really what you want the consistency of your seed starting mix to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill my containers with the seed starting mix. Now my tray does also have a water reservoir because you want to make sure you bottom water your seedlings. If you are top watering your seedlings, you have a much bigger chance of causing them damage to the top. And also with the bottom reservoir, it also gives you a little bit of leeway so that the seedling doesn't necessarily dry out a lot faster because it can sit in water. So once I sow the seeds, I then also pop a cleaner humidity dome on top of it. And then I will be placing this on a heat mat. A heat mat isn't necessary, but it does help them germinate a little bit faster. As soon as I see about half of the tray germinated, I immediately take the heat mat off. I take the humidity dome off and I take it off the heat mat and I place it under a direct bright light. So that can be any type of LED light. If it is a windowsill, it needs to be a very, very, very bright windowsill that gets at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. Otherwise, your seedlings are just going to end up very, very leggy and they just won't be healthy. All right, so now that I have the soil prepped, let's see what kind of seeds I have. So I have 3 different varieties of basil. I have just your regular sweet basil, and I have a dark opal and a purple basil. These are really pretty in floral arrangements. I have lemon balm, chives, lettuce, which I know technically is not an herb. I have flat parsley, oregano, garlic chives, cilantro, rosemary, and sage. Now, probably a few too many varieties to be planting here, so I'm probably gonna be a little bit more selective in terms of what I go ahead and plant. But the biggest thing here is really read the back of your seed packet, because it will give you directions in terms of how to sow it. It'll also give you directions in terms of how many days to wait in terms of germination and when you should start to expect to see that. All right, so with that, we have planted our spring herb garden. Now, some of these, like I had said, will last us all the way through summer, all the way into fall, but some I'm going to have to succession plant throughout the season, take a break in summer, and then start again in the fall. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to check out these. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, tell your friends, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.